Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching us from. Welcome once again to day one of the Kenya Youth Summit. We are so excited to have you all join us. My name is Jane Mugure Cook. I work for Help a Child Africa in the Lobby and Advocacy Department. I also coordinate the communication initiatives in the region. I hope you all have enjoyed the first session where we discussed jobs in the new normal. Especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, things have shifted, things have changed. If you have any questions on this topic, remember to leave them on our chat section and we will be sure to answer them during our live Q&A session tomorrow. On to the second panel. So excited about this. We will be discussing the topic social responsibility and civic participation. There are over 1.8 billion young people in the world today, 90% of whom live in the developing countries. In Kenya, 75% of Kenya's population is under the age of 35 years, and we form a critical mass that require inclusion in the decision-making processes. We have a right to be heard. We have a right to influence matters that affect us. Do we? Our panelists will tackle questions on how youth can meaningfully engage in social and political spheres and bring lasting solutions to challenges that we face. So grab your pen and paper and get ready to learn. Remember to use the chat section to log in your questions, comments, clarifications as the session continues. We look forward to having you join us and just solve this problem that we might seem to have and we all have the solutions for. So, karibuni sana.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruben Muhindi Wamboi and I'm the Africa Regional Coordinator at UNEP Finance Initiative. It's a pleasure to join you all today as we engage in meaningful conversations as youth on how we can think more broadly about our social responsibility and our civic participation.
Hi everyone, my name is Perpetua Muthoni and I am the Vice President at SAIDS, which is Systems Acumen for Youth-Led Development Solutions. And this is a youth-led NGO that equips young people with systems thinking skills through the SAIDS Fellowship Program. And the young people that go through this program live with the knowledge to identify and tackle complex problems in their communities and design holistic solutions.
Hello guys. I hope you are doing well. Welcome to the fourth edition of the Kenya Youth Summit 2021. My name is Thomas Nudi. I am the CEO and founder of Nudi Empire Foundation, which is a community-based organization based in Kenya, in specific in Kiambu County. I'm very excited with this year's edition and looking forward to a wonderful event. So welcome and let's enjoy the event.
Hello everyone and welcome to the fourth edition of the Kenya Youth Summit. My name is Sylvia Murwabe, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and the program manager at Crime CPOA. Today we'll be talking about social responsibility and civic participation. So what is social responsibility? Basically, it is the duty and obligation that we have to work for the benefit of society at large. And we have this responsibility as individuals and even as corporates. And as individuals, it can look something like volunteering of our time, of our money, just to give back to our society, that we can be able to see a society that we all want. With regard to corporate, social responsibility can take many other forms. For example, economic responsibility, which requires that we give value for money to our shareholders. Legal responsibility, which requires us to ensure that the legal requirements are met. Are we paying our taxes? Are we filing our returns on time? And such things. Then we have ethical responsibility, which is very important. The things like corruption, the things like just taking bribes? Are we maintaining our integrity? Are we serving with integrity? Is there human rights in the way we conduct our business? Or are we taking advantage of our workers? Those all include social responsibility. And the one that I know we are most familiar with, philanthropy. Are we taking time to lift the community that we live in, lift the social and economic well-being of our communities? All those are activities that pertain to social responsibility on an individual level and on a corporate level.
My thinking of social responsibility is activities that go beyond us as individuals, and just thinking about, how our lives, and when I talk about lives, I'm thinking about how our choices, how our deeds, how our words go beyond our individual self, and thinking about the influence to the broader society and community in which we live. It is said that humans are selfish, or to use a better word, utilitarian. So we are always thinking about maximizing our utility and our benefit. But social responsibility calls us to think beyond ourselves and ask, how do the actions of our lives go beyond ourselves to the people in our more immediate community? So if you think about your family and your friends and your neighbors, to more broadly, how do our lives and what we do affect our counties and our countries and the continent and the world more broadly? And that is my thinking of social responsibility. Of course, with a very deep belief that I have that as far as society or the system is involved, the greater is more than the sum of the parts. So we just need to have that consciousness that our lives are more interconnected than we actually think.
What about the political system? Can social responsibility affect it in any way? Well, social responsibility also involves taking part in the civic and political affairs of the country, which means that if we're not happy with the political system, if there's something that is not going right, if the governance structure or how we're being ruled is a problem, then we have a responsibility as the citizens to come together and be able to fight and advocate for and demand for the rights of not only ourselves but the nations as a whole. But to be able to affect change, then we need to come together. We need to work as one. And this we have seen work before in our country, like in 1992, when we were fighting for multipartyism, in what we has now come to be called the second liberation. It took the Kenyans to come together and fight for their rights. And we saw this again in 2002, when the then late President Moi, after 24 years in power, was coming to the end of his reign. It took Kenyans to come together and decide that now we need to bring in a new change. All this was only made possible by Kenyans coming together and exercising their rights, their right to speak, their right to vote, and their right to be able to speak up. That is what we need to do if we want to affect the political system and see the change that we want to see in this country.
Yes, it goes without saying that changing the political system is quite difficult. And there are many reasons to this. Systems often lock in certain states. We have some formal rules that are in legislation that ensure things and go on in a certain way. We have informal sort of customs and systems, how things have always been done, norms. We also have those who, let's say, are in power and have benefited from the political system being in a certain state. There's that fight to preserve the status quo because it's worked for them. And given that they have the power and that the tools and the levers are often in their hands, then they fight very hard to preserve that. And so it's not a one-person thing to try and change a system. That's why the element of building critical mass is so important. You need to have quite a number of people being hands on deck to be able to ensure that a system fully changes. And it doesn't always have to be that difficult, which is why I think we have a very strong opportunity with the current youth demographic that we have. In a country that has more than 75% of its population being below the age of 35, I mean, our median age is 19. And so this is a very huge demographic to tap into. Not only, people often tap into young people for their votes, just like cheaply buy their votes. But now when we talk about actually educating them, making sure they have the sense of awareness and the desire to want things to be different from what they've seen growing up, how things in this current system work. So there's that level of vision cast, how things are now versus how we want them to be, and figuring out that in between, making sure they have the skills to not only start at that national level, but at the community level. Because while we're pushing for change at the national level, our communities are still going on day by day. And so being able to bring about change, maybe in bits and pieces, at the county level, making sure that young people have the skills to be able to participate in policy change. Often people conflate policy with politics. They can be intertwined at some point, but making sure that we as citizens all have an understanding of what is required for us to actively participate in nation building without that sense of fear and feeling like this is such a mammoth of a problem that there's nothing I ever do that will make a difference in this system. So I think it starts at the mind level and making sure that we have enough of us who want to see things change and are actively working towards it.
Then to the question of is it hard to affect the political system and why? I don't think it's hard to affect the political system. I mean, if you look through history and say the history of Kenya, we've had like different movements. If you go back to the first liberation, second liberation movements, every change as far as society goes has had some inflection points. And youths have played a critical role. I think the best example I can think of within our continent is during the Arab Spring in Northern Africa. This was a revolution mostly led by the youth. So I don't think it's hard, but I do think it's subject to two things. I think one is what form of government or political system exists. So of course, if you live in a democracy, the chances of influencing the political system are greater than if you actually live in a monarchy kind of system. And I think secondly is about the role that you play in society. So definitely if you are a youth leader or a youth politician, you stand a better chance than a citizen to affect the political system.
Is it hard to affect the political system? So my answer would be yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we, as you all know, in most African countries, we have political anarchy. We have the political elite and the people in power wanting to maintain the status quo. We say we have democracy, but our democracy most of the time is just theoretical, but when it comes to practicability, it lacks behind. So for me, I would say it is hard to affect political change in a way. Reason being also, you'll find most of our African countries, and if I give an example, let's say in Kenya, we have issues to do with tribalism. So people will say, I will elect someone because he or she is from my tribe. But I won't look at the manifesto, I won't look at the agenda that they are bringing on the table. So I just elect someone because they are from our tribe, but not really looking at the agendas of transforming the community that they have. We have also heard of cases of rigging of elections. So you hear one party saying that they have won the election, but they have been rigged out of the seats that they were vying for. So you find even when it comes to election, people claim of foul play. There is no level playing ground when it comes to the elections. So it becomes a bit challenging because the will of the people is not reflected when it comes to the results. So yes, it is difficult, but it is not impossible. We have also heard of issues to do with assassinations. Somebody has been assassinated because of his or her political stand. But on the other hand, I can also say that it is not difficult also to affect the political change, because when people come together, when people are united, and when people look at the agendas that the leaders are bringing on the table, then I believe that it is easy, because people united will always succeed. So unity is the most important thing, and also a change of mindset. When we as electorates go to the ballot, we need to elect leaders who have the vision and who have the goodwill of the people, so that we can get good leaders. So it is a yes or no question, and for me, I think if we are united and if we want change, I believe that we can do it. Some of the ways I can say that I have participated in solving a community or a public concern together with my group and also my friends is, I remember during the 2017 general elections in Kenya, we had the post-election violence and tribes were ganging up against other tribes. So one of the things that we did is we did peace walks. So we had peace walks across the area, just to sensitize people on the need and on the importance of looking at your brother not by their tribe, but looking at them as a human being and also loving them. So that is one of the things that we did, and it really changed the mindset of the community, because even the people that were doing the work, we were from different tribes, but we didn't look at each other from the tribes that we come from, but as human beings and as images of God.
When it comes to, giving an example of how you've participated to solve a community or public concern, is that it touches directly on the work that we do here at SAIDS. We work with young people to ensure that they have the skills to be able to tackle social problems in their communities and also at the national level. We understand that we can't do it all, so we give young people the tools and the skills that they need to be able to also do the same in their communities. So the goal for us is to be a grassroots movement where we have enough people who have the knowledge to do this in their communities. And some of the impacts that we've had is that now we have young people in Nairobi, Kisumu, Siaya, who have started community-based organizations, are tackling complex problems in the communities, are participating in policy at the county level, are taking the skills that they've learned and using them in their jobs, in their communities, in different arenas, because it's a very transferable skill. So it goes beyond being a personal example and being more of an institutional example of how we really want to make sure that young people and citizens have what it takes to be able to address community concerns and public concerns.
For those who, like myself, have gone through the 844 system, education system, there's one thing that you'll all agree with me, that it seems that the focus has been mainly on passing exams rather than character building, which means that most of the time when we study, we don't study because we want to learn, we don't study because we want to remain with those values, but we study because at the end of the day, we need to get that A, because that A is what will get us that good job and give us that life that we're looking for. But for us to have that social accountability, social responsibility, then we need to put more than just exams, more than just learning a bunch of figures or a bunch of facts in school, but ingrain the values and the systems that we want our children to know in the education system from an early age. So if we want our children to learn to volunteer, we want our children to learn to give of their time, to clean the environment, to not litter, all these things, the social values that are important to us. If we want our children to be able to learn them, we want our children to be able to live them, then we need to ingrain that in the education system from an early age.
On the questions of how do we better embed social accountability in the education model, I think there are 5 ways in which to think about social accountability in education. I think the first one is through teaching culture and history, because I think culture and history helps us to understand the environment in which we live and where we are coming from. And I think secondly is through teaching philosophy and literature, because these things help us to question our identity, and also they help us to grow in, actually forming our identity, which is very important as youths. Then thirdly, I think through leadership roles in schools. So whether you're a prefect, whether you're a class rep, whether you're a games captain, whether you're a group leader, because taking on responsibility early in life gives us, helps us to form, social accountability. And I think fourthly is sports. One thing I find very unique about sports, it helps people to have a sense of grit, perseverance, and also a sense of responsibility, and thirdly, a sense of teamwork, which I think is very important, at a youthful stage in life to be able to form this. But also sports helps us to be able to encounter and deal with failure early on in life. So I think that's, that is very important when I think about it. And lastly, what I would think about is manual competence, or what you call hard skills. So in a school education system where people are taught carpentry and farming and learning musical instruments, anything that requires, being able to do things with your hands, which I call manual competence, or something that is physical. So if I think about those 5 things, so history and culture, philosophy and literature, taking leadership roles early on in school, whatever level of education you are in, sports, and also building manual competence, I think those 5 things help to foster social accountability within the education model.
When it comes to corporate social responsibility, there are many drivers and barriers to the same, but today we'll look at just a few. Number 1, finances. Many times, organizations are not able to serve or give back to the community as much as they would like to, because they do not have the finances. But there are instances where there are the finances and still they're not able to perform as much corporate social responsibility, which leads me to the next driver and or barrier: management. That if the management does not have this culture to for CSR, then whether we have finances or not really doesn't matter, because still will not be able to give back to society. But where the management has inculcated in the organization the culture to give back, the culture to be able to serve, then we see a thriving corporate social responsibility in organizations. Another thing is just a lack of awareness that the organizations where we have various stakeholders or who just don't know how they can be able to give back, or that they're even supposed to give back, because we start business most of the time just thinking about how can I grow myself, how can I be able to build my portfolio, how can I be able to get cash, how can I be able to live that comfortable life, forgetting that if I am living that comfortable life but I have not uplifted the life of those who are around me, then can I really be safe with that wealth? Can I be able to enjoy that wealth in peace and in safety? So let's just build that culture within us. If you're starting your own business as an entrepreneur, as a young entrepreneur, put it in you and in your workers to be able to always find time to give back to the society that has built you.
Some of the drivers of CSR are obviously helping people is at the top of the list. Companies that have profits are able to share some of these profits in a way that benefits society. So they run projects to help different individuals in the society. And also this is a form of enabling them to build brand equity, because often companies are viewed as personas with certain characteristics, and helping others builds their brand equity in a way that's good for them at the end of the day. One key barrier to CSR for companies is CSR is not a profit-generating activity, and often companies put emphasis on or prioritize activities that increase their margins. So that's one of the reasons that you find it's being done periodically, or there's a separate entity that handles this, so that could serve as the biggest barrier. However, in recent years, we've seen a shift towards a different way of doing business, where doing good or helping people is not an isolated experience or activity for the organization. Let's say you do CSR once a year. The business model has shifted where there's focus on profits, but also people and the planet for some businesses. So it doesn't have to be an either-or activity or a barrier that this doesn't generate profit for us. You can help people and at the same time be able to generate a profit. And I feel like that's where the world is going into, and that's where the world needs to go to for us to keep building a better world.
The way I see CSR, I think there are three drivers. Of course, one, it's a duty. I think corporates have a duty to contribute to the societies in which they operate. But I think the second driver is that many corporates also use this as a currency of gaining social acceptability within the society. And thirdly, corporates use it for optimizing their taxation. So I see those as the drivers. In terms of the barriers, is I think one where there is lacking enough public investment. So if you think of public investment in education, public investment in infrastructure, or in healthcare, that affects the extent to which CSR can be effective, because I think CSR complements what is already public funded. So where we have gaps, say for example, say something like a road, if you don't have accessibility of roads to a particular area, then that also limits, just the convenience to which, corporates can access those areas to offer, CSR initiatives. So I think where there is lacking public investment, that becomes a challenge for CSR efforts. And in terms of what are the social responsibilities of doctors, scientists, and institutional communication on COVID-19, I think, foremost the responsibility that doctors and scientists and, all these medical professionals have, I think it's a professional responsibility, to offer service and, in a way that with integrity and all that, if you think about the Hippocratic Oath. But also, I think, interestingly, I think we also owe them a sense of responsibility. Like one, just listening to scientists, there's a lot of misinformation that goes around, for example, around the COVID vaccine, which leads to vaccine hesitancy and people denying that vaccines work and all that. So I think we also have a sense of responsibility to know what the professionals are saying, and so that it's a two-way thing. So they have a professional responsibility towards us, but also as citizens we have a professional, rather a societal responsibility towards them.
Since March 2020, the world has been facing a global pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. And to many of us, we have asked ourselves, what does this mean? And we've been looking to our doctors and the scientists to give us solutions. And today we might ask, what is the responsibility that they have to us as the citizens? Well, in a nutshell, they have the duty of care. The duty to ensure that the research and the service that they provide are towards meeting the health needs of the communities that they serve. That the information that goes out there is information that is true, that is verified, that will not lead us to more panic. And as the citizens, we also have a responsibility. That even as we're looking to our doctors to come and to serve, to come and to treat, we have a responsibility to keep to the guidelines that we have been given. So, wash your hands. Ensure that you keep social distance. Ensure that you wear a mask when you're out in public. And stay home. Stay home, stay safe. Unless you really need to go out, there's no need to keep putting ourselves and others and our doctors who are risking their lives to save us at risk as well. So let's take our part as well. Let's meet our responsibilities as well. Stay safe and keep your neighbor safe as well.
Then on the question of can the amount spent on COVID-19 relief work be considered as CSR expenditure? I think it depends. I think for most corporates have a responsibility to take care of their employees as a bare minimum, maybe, for example, through the insurance cover that they provide and making sure, like COVID-related treatment is covered. But also I think corporates have also shown the way of, using some of their corporate profits to support COVID relief work. And I think that can ideally be counted as COVID relief coming from the corporate. But as I have mentioned, I think much of public health care is a public duty to be catered for through public investment, and I think CSR should only play a complementary role. What are your 3 takeaways for every youth listening in today? I like the question of social responsibility and civic participation. Also, for example, in the context of Kenya, we are headed towards the election in 2022, and I think youths have a role and a duty to play in the political process, in the election of our leaders, and all through, because I think elections are a process all the way from the campaigning and nominations all the way to the election date. So just how we get involved in the process and just own it as youths. But in terms of takeaway, I think one is the maxim that says do what you can with what you have wherever you are. So just doing, not feeling limited, but doing that which is within our means to influence. And I think secondly is around capacities. I am a strong believer that life is about choice and capacity. So just every youth, building capacity and knowing, what skills do you need to build, what is it that you need to learn in order to achieve what you want to achieve. How do you build that capacity? Is it through seeking guidance from people who've done it before? Is it through learning a skill? Is it through taking a course? Just thinking more broadly about capacities. And I think thirdly is around habits. I've realized a lot depends on habit formation as a person. So I think we can become better social beings and better political beings and better humans by just building habits which serve us right. And in this regard, I would like to recommend some of the best books I've read around this topic, which I like recommending to my mentees. I think one is a book called The Power of Habit. It's by Charles Duhigg. It's very useful as far as habit formation goes and explains what are the mental processes that go beyond formation of habits and how do you form habits. Then there's also a nice book called Focus. It's written by Daniel Goleman. It just helps us, to think about, how do you build that focus as a discipline and just being able to put your time, attention, and energy onto one thing and doing it really well. And lastly, one book that I've read very recently is called Deep Work by Cal Newport. And deep work simply says, how can you actually do meaningful work, or what he calls deep work, in a world where we are so digitally connected that, digital gadgets take all our attention. If you think about your phone, if you think about Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and, all these social media, channels or platforms, how can you actually learn to disengage digitally so that you can actually do something that is meaningful? And I've found Deep Work to be very useful. So Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, Focus by Daniel Goleman, Deep Work by Cal Newport. These are books I would recommend in terms of thinking about how to build habits. And thank you very much, and I wish you well for the rest of the summit.
I would tell every young person listening in, 1, you have a voice. 2, you can make a difference. And 3, start with the small steps.
For all the youth who are listening in today, just one thing I'd want you to take home. Your voice matters. And you too have a role to play in creating the society that you want to see. So don't let anyone look down on you because of your youth. Don't be afraid to take up space. Stand up, be counted, speak up. And for all of us in general, what have we learned today? That social responsibility is for each one of us. It can be either passive, which means do no harm. Just keep from doing that which will harm your neighbor or the society at large. Or just go out and actively participate in the things that matter to you, in the things that matter to your community. Go out, volunteer, go out, put a smile on someone's face. If you have more that you can be able to give out, just go and share the love, and let's all work together towards having a society that we'll all be proud of, towards having a society that is comfortable for each and every one of us. Be blessed.